How'd you end up doing this job, Grace?
I wanted to help save animals from extinction.
This is Bailey, the filmmaker I told you about.
What were you doing before you decided to follow us around?
After the fires happened, I just wanted to help make things better.
I want my contribution to be that I discover a species that's never been seen before and it gets named after me.
And what if it's a swamp-dwelling rodent?
Oh, there's no reception past here, so if you want to message anyone, you should do it now.
What's going on today?
We're retrieving some cameras left behind by another team.
A bush rat. Oh.
What's happened here? Look at these scratches here.
Whoa.
What do you think's been chewing on it?
Could be feral pigs, wild dogs.
We're not in danger. What is it?
I don't know. Can't see. For God's sake.
Ben! We have to go! If we play a tiny part in saving one single species, it will be worth it.
Carnifex, the largest carnivorous Australian mammal on record, hunted the megafauna of the Pleistocene era. It was one of the first fossil mammals discovered in Australia, found not long after European settlement, and now it's got its own film. Carnifex, which premiered at the Adelaide Film Festival, is the first feature film in the director's chair for SEAN LAHIFF. He joins us here on Screen Watching. Mate, it's so good to talk to you.
Thank you for having me.
Mate, once again, another reason to fear the Australian bush. What are the origins of this story? How did it all come about for you?
Well, it's funny. It's just one more thing that that lives out there that wants to kill you. The origins of the story come from Gina Helen Ashwell's mother, who got freaked out when she was visiting Australia by the drop bear myth, and we wanted to make a film together, and Gina and Helen came to me with a proposal, and I love the outdoors. I love survival films. I love horror, thriller, and when they pitched it as having a scientific kind of, grounded in reality kind of edge about it, I was really excited. And we thoroughly explored plot and story and characters, and wrote numerous treatments, and then approached a writer I knew, Shanti Gudgeon. And she jumped at the chance to come on board to write the script for us. And so, yeah, it's a love letter to the forests of Australia. And, we love the idea of discovering this species. It's based on the Thylacoleo carnifex, but it's not quite, it could be a subspecies. The characters in the film talk about it as not quite knowing what it is yet. Like the Thylacoleo carnifex was more of a big cat, like a sort of a front heavy cat with more rodent style or marsupial style sort of teeth. And we love the idea of keeping a bit mysterious with it, basing it a little bit more on the drop bear myth and crossing it with sort of a koala almost. And we love the name, and the characters talk about in the film, they talk about where the name comes from. And Ben wanted to discover a species that gets named after him. He loved this name. He tells this great story about it being the maker of meat, or the executioner, which is what the word carnifex means in Latin. So yeah, look, there were these great ingredients. The bushfires were also, that happen every year here in Australia. They were
Yeah.
a big part of our story, and we wanted to include that as being sort of a catalyst for how these scientists discover this new or thought to be extinct species.
Yeah, and not without precedent. Those prehistoric fish that turn up every now and again. This is very much based in science. I do want to point out that you take a leaf, I guess, out of the Jaws playbook, in that it's a slow burn reveal for your monster for maximum effect. What other monster movies or movies in general factored into the CARNIFEX mood board?
Look, it's interesting. Yeah, Alien was definitely an inspiration for me stylistically. I love the idea of getting to know the characters really well first and going with them on the scientific journey of discovery. And we were a little bit limited by budget in not being able to show the CARNIFEX too much, but we certainly built up to it. But I don't think it was. Sure. I never wanted to make a monster movie. I always wanted to make something that was a bit classier in terms of, or more based in science and reality. So we call it an animal on our movie, and the Descent is another really cool film. That's certainly a monster movie.
Yeah, I get that quoted back to me a lot whenever I talk to filmmakers. It seems to have been a very influential.
Yeah. The Ritual is another good one. The Thing. Yes. I mean, there's a little bit of Predator in there with the heat scope sort of thing. Troll Hunters, which is a really fun film about a filmmaker or filmmakers, sort of discovering an urban myth.
Andre's a friend of mine. I know Andre very well, so he's
really.
He'll be happy to hear that.
Oh man, we love that movie. Oh, me and Gina, we love that movie. I've seen that so many times. That's so cool. Yeah,
but I mean, that's a great collection. That's a great collection of inspiration, and it's all up there on the screen. There's obviously real film knowledge and film background for you, of course, with the history you've had as an editor. There are skeletons and there are renderings of Thylacoleo carnifex in several Australian museums.
Yes.
Was this sort of a case of showing your effects team the pictures and just saying bring it to life, or
no?
I mean, is our scientific community going to nod at approval at what you've done with your Alpha Predator?
Well, because we haven't technically called it it's not the Thylacoleo carnifex. We're saying this is something that's evolved over time.
Okay. That gave them a bit of license.
It did, and we began with a design. The production designer is also a great graphic artist, and I worked with him closely to sort of sketch up, a look. That look was a bit scary and a bit monster-like, and so we toned it. We sort of weaved it into the Australian fauna, like a species of Australian fauna, like that. We borrowed the nose from a koala, the fur of a wombat, and we gave it fur that was sort of camouflage in a way. So it's the way that it hunts, the way that it sort of feeds and stows its prey, definitely alike, and the fact that it's nocturnal and a carnivorous marsupial are definitely borrowed from the Thylacoleo carnifex. But the final look is something that's a little bit different. A little bit, we've taken sort of creative license in creating this carnifex. It's not the Thylacoleo carnifex, but it is the maker of meat and the executioner. So I'm sure scientists will, some may point out, oh, that's not the Thylacoleo carnifex, but in watching of the film and through the dialogue, you realize that it's a bespoke, like it's its own beast, it's its own animal.
Yeah, they always say you don't want to watch ER with a bunch of doctors, or you don't want to watch, The Right Stuff with a bunch of astronauts. They always got something to complain about. So
but everything else scientific, we do base everything in science. And the production designer's sister was actually does the job of what our characters do. So she's a field, she goes out in the field, she tracks the displacement of animals after the bushfires. She records endangered species in forests that are earmarked for logging for the government. So we had this great wealth of knowledge and basis for our characters. So that was another great putting us in the science, embedding us in the science of it all.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, because unlike just a straight up horror movie or a straight up monster movie, there is a period that where the characters really bond and really get to know each other. You see there's a clear chemistry between them all, and that certainly helps the film in the sort of the third act, when the stuff starts to get really nasty. Tell us about your cast, and was there a long sort of rehearsal period to bring these characters into focus for you and the actors, or was that, because a lot of it seems to be done on the shoot?
Yeah, look, we had an amazing cast. Alexandra Park flew over from LA. She's an Australian, but has worked a lot in America on film and TV. She was a really lucky get for us. Harry Greenwood and Sisi Stringer. I worked with Sisi was in Mortal Kombat, which I did a bit of work on. And look, it was just we were really lucky to get all of them, and we only had about a week of rehearsals. My biggest thing was that they all got along and that it felt like it was natural. I didn't want to do too much. I didn't want Alexandra to get to know Harry and Cece too well, though, because I wanted there to be a little bit of realistic getting to know you sort of vibe while out there on location, sort of being thrown into the mud and the rain and everything. So we rehearsed in terms of learning dialogue, learning your lines and what have you. But and Harry and Cece sort of got to learn their equipment so that they felt comfortable with it, as though they use it every day. But and Bailey, Alexandra, we made sure that she was competent with her filming camera. But yeah, we saved a lot of it for out on set, so that it sort of felt like they did kind of need to get to know each other. But that was the most important thing for me was the realism of, and the naturalism of how they all get along, and the dialogue and the banter and the joking.
Please don't tell me that you wrap the end of every day and sort of walk 20 meters that way to a 5-star hotel, because it looked like it was a tough shoot.
It was extraordinarily tough. It was, and the unfortunate thing is that you don't see how tough it really was. Most days it was raining. A lot of the time we had to cover where we were filming, like the actors, with a big plastic sheet, so you couldn't see that it was raining. Wow. We didn't walk to a 5-star hotel. No, we trudged back up hills and through creek beds and through the mud, through the forest, with animals making their noises. Like, it was funny. You'd hear koalas, with their mating calls, sort of piping up during the shoot. There were rotting animal carcasses we found in the forest that had been sort of chewed at. There was one.
Mood, I guess.
Yeah, and there was this one location where we were down by the creek where the team are waiting, where they discovered the goat and the carnifex for the first time. And that creek started flooding, halfway through our shoot night, our second shoot night. And yeah, it was tough. Lots of mud, lots of rain, lots of wind, falling branches. Yeah. But it wasn't very far away, because it was all shot in the Adelaide Hills. At various locations like Lobethal, Belair, Morialta. So we weren't more than half an hour from the city.
You're one of the sector's elite editors. I Am Mother, Jungle, Gold, Relic, Wolf Creek 2. You've brought a fresh pair of eyes to other people's storytelling. what was different about sort of the end-to-end role you play with CARNIFEX? How did you meld this new skill as a film director and your ingrained skills as an editor?
That's a good question. I think the biggest learning curve for me was the day-to-day set life and working with actors. I knew what I needed to get from the actors because I see what comes in every day, you know, from take to take, from angle to angle. So I knew what I needed to get, but it was how to talk to the actors, how to coax them and steer them into, you know, different directions. That was sort of a big learning curve that worked out great because I thought the acting was excellent. And just, I was nervous about how it works on set, and I was amazed at how everybody comes together, they do their thing, they have their role, and the director just needs to conduct like an orchestra. And you know, it was just not needing to micromanage and just having trust in my creative crew and technical crew that they could all do their thing.
I mean, fair enough as well. I've spoken to other. I interviewed Makbul Mubarak, who did Autobiography, the film that won here in Adelaide, and he was a film critic turned filmmaker, and he said almost exactly the same thing, that we have our skill set over here, then you get on set, and it's all about lenses and production schedules and all this sort of thing. So there is this whole other side to filmmaking that makes it just as new and exciting as the regular gig. So I do know what you're saying,
Yeah, and it was amazing. Like I edited the film as well, which I probably, you know, I'd think twice about next time. But it was fantastic.
Why do you say that?
Oh, it was really difficult. I think I missed the input that an editor brings to a film, and having that second head and that second set of eyes in the edit room that can be really critical and constructive and creative. I had an assembly editor who turned additional editor, Reg Squarco, who was a great help, but it was just a lot to take on. Like instead of doing, you know, I'm focusing on moving rectangles around a timeline and stuff like that, whereas I would have loved to have been shown something that I hadn't thought of before. And putting my feet up and thinking about score and sound and visual effects and grade and all that just a little bit more during the post period, instead of leaving it all until after I'd finished editing, because there's just a lot to do. Like editing's a 50 to 60 hour working week normally, so it doesn't leave a lot of time for directing all the other stuff that has to go on in post.
Mate, you were, and I hope you don't mind me bringing it up, but you were mentored by one of the most unique film storytellers I think this country's ever seen, one of the most underappreciated in your late dad, Craig. What did he instill in you as a filmmaker that we can see in CARNIFEX? And I'm not just saying that because I want to qualify that by saying I was working within sort of the independent sector back at the turn of the millennium, and his films like Black and White and Fever and, you know, were coming out. Certainly Heaven's Burning, which I think is one of the great underrated Australian films. Yeah. What did he instill in you as a filmmaker that we can see on this film?
He always just really tried to instill that you've got to trust your instincts and to be confident. He was a good editor himself. He said, if in doubt, you know, cut it out. And that casting is probably your biggest, and acting, like the cast and the characters is probably your biggest, always the biggest thing. They're your storytellers on the screen. It's easy to make things look good and to flow well and sound good. Well, not easy, but they're the things that, you know, you get a great cinematographer, you get a great editor, a great sound designer, a great composer, and that'll get you a lot of the way. But it's the casting. Making those casting decisions counts for so much. And so that was a big thing.
I mean, that's interesting to hear coming from you know, having cast an early Russell Crowe film. He brought Charles Dance
Yeah.
out for black and white. You know, he
Ben Mendelsohn. Yeah.
And Ben Mendelsohn. Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
he knew what he
had
was talking about.
Yeah, he had such good cast in his films, and then they all went on. I mean, Swerve had Jason Clarke and David Lyons and Emma Booth, and he had a real knack for casting. And I had to make sure that even in the peripheral characters, like our Ranger Matt, and our hunter Gary, I had to make sure that even just those smaller roles had to be well cast, because as soon as you've got a hole, or as soon as you've got a performance that isn't great, it's going to pull you out of the film. So, you know, I think casting was a big thing. Score, Dad was, you know, loved his music, loved his editing. I mean, yeah, like it's funny when trying to think of what exactly.
He'd be happy with it, I'm sure. I think he'd be
I'm
proud
sure.
of the strong commercial instincts that you bring to it.
That's the other thing. Like, it's entertainment, and Dad was always trying to make thrillers. Like, throughout the 80s, 90s, he was making thrillers that would sell worldwide, and you could make money, and you could make good money selling to Germany and Italy and France and America, and it was just good entertainment, you know. And you know, it wasn't trying to be too arty about it, or be too philosophical, or what have you. It was just good cinema, it was good films and entertainment, and that's number one on the list. Like, you've got to make it a commercially viable product that has to sell tickets. So you know, we've got to make it an industry, not a. We've got to make money off these things. That's the bottom line. Yeah.
Finally, mate, what is it with the Adelaide Film Festival and their love of genre films? I got into a whole thing with the Sydney Film Festival when I came out, and they wanted me to promote on my Sydney Science Fiction Film Festival website. They wanted me to promote their genre films. They didn't have any. They had nothing in their lineup that I could promote, and yet Adelaide's got CARNIFEX and Monolith and Rib Spreader, all locally made films. It feels like a very vibrant sector for sci-fi, horror, thriller storytellers. Is that fair to say, or are we just having a good year?
I think it's fair to say. I mean, a couple of years ago, I Am Mother had a screening at the Adelaide Film Festival. I loved that. Matt Kesting and the team at the Adelaide Film Festival were so supportive of the genre films. I mean, they have an audience. They have a global audience. You know, genre films, you know, they break language barriers. You know, there's certain formulas that audiences everywhere around the world can follow in sci-fi and horror and thriller and what have you. So I loved it. I was really excited, really proud, really happy to be part of the Adelaide Film Festival and part of their genre slate. I hope they keep it up.
I hope so as well.
They got great audiences. Yeah,
well, exactly. That's right. They're selling tickets for it. That's the amazing thing. Whether these audiences are coming up for the genre film or for the local filmmakers or both, or the festival's influence is what's putting bums on seats. But whatever it's doing, it's working, and you guys are making fantastic films in this part of the world. So congratulations.
Thank you. That's very kind. Yeah, no, we're all really excited.
It's been wonderful talking to you, mate. Good luck with the film. I know it's in Universal's hands rolling forward, so they're good people, Mike and the team there. So hopefully they'll do right by it. But thanks for talking with us on Screen Watching, and all the very best.
Yeah, thank you. December 1st will be out in cinemas, so hopefully everyone goes and sees it. And yeah, thanks for having me. It's been good to chat.
Good, mate.